Right. Hello there, everyone. Welcome to day two of our Dibbly Create masterclass. Now, if you didn't tune in to yesterday's day one, there is a video up for that on our YouTube channel. You can check it out there. Uh, Mike, if you have a link, drop that in the chat for everyone. Um, and if you weren't here yesterday, let me explain who Mike is. Mike is our producer on the back end. He's helping me through all of this. You might see him pop up in chat every now and then. And if you do have any questions that come to you during this webinar, feel free to drop them in the chat. Mike will keep track of them all, and then we'll get to them at the end of the webinar. So in terms of the agenda for today, we're going to be going over mostly content creation, written content creation. We'll be doing outlining. We'll be doing the actual content generation for the written content itself. And we'll be going over formatting, all of that here in Dibbly Create. I've got some examples set up that I have pre-generated, all using the tools here in Create, but I'll take you through how the tools work. And right when we get to the step where we hit generate, I'm just going to minimize the tool and show you the generation that I've pre-generated. So we can give it a few minutes. Let's let people trickle in. We'll give it 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then we can get started. Now, in the meantime, I see you already have some messages popping up in chat. Hi there, Frank. Glad you remembered my name if you were here yesterday. I actually think my name might also be on the screen, to be fair, so can't give you too much credit there. But hello everyone. Yesterday, I did a bit of a thing at the beginning of the webinar asking from where in the world everyone is tuning in from. I like to get an idea of how far our reach is. I remember yesterday, I actually took notes, and I'm going to have a look at those notes now, but we had some people from South Wales. We had a few Londoners from England in the chat, a few Texans. I remember distinctly at least 3 Texans, one from Houston, one from Austin. Not too sure where the third was from, but if you are here, please do let me know. We had a few Germans in the chat, I believe one in Frankfurt, one in Berlin at the very least. We had an Egyptian over in Cairo in the chat. We had a Costa Rican here. Had someone from New York, from Scottsdale, Arizona. I see Craig from Maryland is back. I forgot to add Maryland to my list, but welcome back. We had a South African from Johannesburg here as well. Remember, we had an Australian as well with us in the chat from yesterday. So everyone, if you are here from yesterday's webinar, please do let us know. If this is your first time, if you're new here, also let us know and welcome. We are going to be having another webinar tomorrow. Tomorrow's agenda will be tackling a bit of the post-generation things. So we'll be going over things that'll help you wrap up your book, mostly in the line of like market research, what your next steps after generating your book are, things like book descriptions, things like image generation, kind of the final finishing touches before you get to sell your book. Yes, North Texas. There's our third Texan. Welcome back. And Costa Rica, Switzerland is here again as well. Welcome. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm glad to see we've got some familiar faces back. Rita, I remember seeing you around yesterday. You had a very good question for me at the end of the webinar, if I remember correctly. Welcome. I hope to see another question from you today. And we have one of our Londoners here too. All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm very happy to see we've retained some of you. It means I didn't do too badly yesterday. All right, fantastic. I think we'll give it another minute, and then Mike will go ahead and share what I have on my screen, and we'll get started going through everything. Now, as I mentioned earlier, and I'll kind of just repeat briefly what we're doing today for anyone that has joined the chat. With our agenda for the day, let me put it that way. Our agenda is going to be mainly focused on content generation. So it'll be our outline tool, it'll be our content writer tool, and there'll be our formatting, which is part of our export process here at Dibbly Create. We're going to be covering fiction and nonfiction, because I know we do have both fiction and nonfiction publishers here as part of our customer base. We've got quite a decent number of both, in fact. I'm actually not sure which side is winning right now in terms of the amount of users, but we will be covering both. We're going over. And I'll give you a run through of just some general tips and tricks to getting the most out of AI. These can be applied to any AI, really, but in particular, I'm going to be using our tools, so there might be a few things that I'll mention which are specific to us. Oh, I see we have another Texan. We have Carrier. I think MS is Missouri, USA, if I'm correct. So welcome. In fact, I used Missouri as a staging place for one of the examples that I'm going to be showing in this webinar. There is a link to day one, Linda, and to Tom. These sessions are going to be available afterwards. They're going to be, available. They are recorded. They're going to be available to rewatch after. I'm not sure if we do have a link right now to yesterday's session, but do check out our YouTube channel. You'll see it there. It'll be uploaded there as soon as it's ready. And the YouTube channel will just be Dibbly Create, if you go ahead and search for that. I see Jay Rhodes, or Rhodes J, has asked where I'm from. I am actually based in Pretoria, South Africa. I do work remotely for Dibbly, a Canadian company. But I don't necessarily have a typical South African accent. My family were all expats from the UK. So I have a father from Aberdeen and a mother from Manchester. And being raised in South Africa has produced this accent, which is a weird hodgepodge of all three. All right, Mike, I think we are good to get into screen sharing if you want. All right, now just a reminder, everyone, if you do have questions, drop them in the chat. We will be getting around to them right at the end. I'll make an effort to ensure that no question goes unanswered. We do want to make sure that we are giving you guys an educational experience here. You are taking time out of your day to watch this, so that's the least we can do. Now, getting started. As you can see on my screen here, I have got Dibbly Create opened up. I'm on my account, and I'm looking at an outline for a non-fiction book. Now, this is something that I pre-generated yesterday, actually the day before. I did prepare in advance for these webinars, I promise. And this outline is specifically for a motivational self-help book titled The Art of Staying Motivated at Work. I didn't put a lot of thought into that title, but that's okay. That's not the focus right here. Now, before I go into a deep dive of what is in this outline, I'm going to show you the process of how I got there. This is a non-fiction outline, so we'll start with that. I'll give you a little bit of a run through of what's included, and then we'll hop over into a fiction outline. For that, I went for contemporary romance as the topic and as the genre there. Now, to get started here with nonfiction, we're going to head over to our ChatKIP tools, and we're going to head to our outliner tool right here. We're going to select nonfiction. I tend to just go for the fiction or nonfiction question first, but feel free to run through it how you want. There is no particular order. And then up here for audience type, I'm going to pick the type of audience that I hope will be reading my book, and I hope that my book will appeal to. Now, this all ties into a lot of the research that we did yesterday. Yesterday, we went over research for our market, our reader base. We went over researching ideal keywords and topics. So if you aren't too familiar with really the planning stage of getting to this point for outlining, do check out yesterday's video. We also do have some helpful blogs on our website too that might give you a hand here. And of course, you can find other information online. Let me say that too. But starting with our audience type here, in the case of this specific nonfiction book, I'm going to say adults. It doesn't really matter if it's men or women for my book, because for the example that I made, it is just about motivating yourself in the workplace. It isn't particularly focused on a particular gender. Then, under number of chapters, for the example that I made, I put in 10 chapters and I set my word count to be 30,000 words. Now, if you're not too familiar, that is generally the sweet spot when publishing nowadays, especially in nonfiction. With fiction, those rules can be bent a bit. Typically, with fiction, it's a lot dependent on the genre. Fantasy books tend to run a lot longer than a contemporary casual romance book. So, if you aren't too sure about the number of words, number of chapters you should put in, there is a lot of useful resources online that can help you there. And if you don't want to open up a new tab and go online to get those resources, you can always open up ChatKIP Chat here. Our little assistant right here is going to have that information for you. Now, expanding that again and picking up where we left off, we were at 30,000 words here. The book title I put in was, let me actually remind myself, The Art of Staying Motivated at Work. So, at work. I then put in a genre that I feel this book is going to fit into. Apologies, I just hit my mic. The genre in this case I put in was motivational. But you can put in multiple here. So you can say motivational, and you can maybe even put in like a higher level genre or category and say self-help. The reason why I say that is motivational books, typically wherever you sell them, they're going to fall under a more broad category like self-help. So I like to be a bit extra thorough and put in both, or put in multiple categories here that I think it will fit under. That's also going to help the outliner really get a feel for the type of writing that's needed for this. Then we have main topic. Now, main topic, this can be a single line of information. You can put in a single word of information even. There is really no hard limit to what you should or shouldn't put in here. It really comes down to what you're comfortable with. In my case, my main topic was just a single line of information that said something along the lines of, this book is to help corporate professionals find motivation in the workplace. Where you want to get into a bit more detail is the explanation of book. Now, in the explanation of book, you can go ahead and, again, put in a single line of information if you want. But generally, when you're working with generative AI, the more info, the better. Take that with a grain of salt, to be fair. Sometimes you can put a bit too much information. You can stunt creativity if you put in way too much. But generally, you want to put in a few lines of information here, giving an idea of what the book is hoping to achieve, what issues it's hoping to address for the reader, and kind of a general feel for the direction of the book. Now, luckily, again, if you were here yesterday in yesterday's session, part of the research that we touched on was looking at books that competitors in your chosen niche have done, and getting an understanding of where they went right, where they went wrong, and the market that you should be targeting. And a lot of that information is going to be relevant here. You can quite literally open up your research and copy paste information into this box, such as the book's direction or the challenges your readers face, etc. Now, once all that's filled in, this little button is going to go bright red. We can hit generate, and within a few minutes, you're going to have an outline right here, which you can then either save to your project by clicking this button, you can copy it to your clipboard, you can clear results and start again. Up to you. I'm just going to go ahead and close this, and I'll run you through that nonfiction outline. Now, before I get started, water break. That was a common theme of yesterday's webinar, and I'm going to repeat what I said yesterday. If you haven't got some water by you, go grab some, have a drink, it's good for you. It's good for my voice in particular right now. Now, moving on to this outline here. So we can see it took about 96,000 total tokens to generate this outline, but it has given me a very comprehensive run through of everything that I need to really get started creating content for this book. Now, the beauty of it being here in Create is we can just go ahead, highlight, edit things as we see fit. So if you want to add a bit of a personal touch and edit it yourself, you can. And of course, you can hire an editor from the Urban Writers to hop in here and work on it too. Now, looking here at the provided book explanation, this is our first little snippet at the top. This is what I input as the explanation of book. It's about 3 lines of information. We get to the book background next, which goes over manuscript requirements. This is various miscellaneous parts of information that give you a general overview of the objectives of the book, what it's about, what the key reader takeaways are, what questions readers might want answered, your target audience, why they would read the book, and what is the style and tone. So this is all foundational information that is going to help the later generation of the book, when we take it through the content generator, understand who it's writing it for. So going through these very briefly, we have objective 1 here, which is to equip corporate professionals with practical strategies for self-motivation that can be easily implemented in their daily routines. That's an example of one of the book's objectives. Again, if you want to add in something else, you just need to type it in here. You can put it in. You could even go ahead and highlight what we already have here. You could highlight this whole section. You can open up our little inline CIP, and you can have it continue writing. Or you can have it enrich this content if you feel there's not enough information here. Don't be afraid to go ahead and make use of inline CIP to really up the level of any content you feel is lacking. Now, what the manuscript is about, short 2-line explanation on the general purpose of this manuscript. Doesn't seem like a lot of information here, but it really is important to give the AI a full context of the actual purpose of this book. And one thing to keep in mind with generative AI is it is trained on conversation. It's trained on the way that people talk to each other, which means that to get the most out of it, you often want to talk to it and you want to feed it information like you would another person. So having simple 1-2-line explanations of things that don't go into a ton of heavy detail is often very efficient at getting the most out of a creative generative AI. So we have our key reader takeaways next. These are going to be the main things you want your readers to learn or to take away from your book. What are the questions the readers that would want answered by this manuscript? Again, these are hypothetical questions that readers would most likely want your book to address. The target audience over here, an understanding of who you are targeting with this book, why the audience will read the book. Important for the generative AI to know the intent of people that want to read this book. It's going to give it more context. And then what is the style and tone? Actually, we do have competition analysis after this too. But the style and tone is something that would be decided by very much the genre or the topic that you are covering. So what do books in the genre, in this topic, typically go for in terms of their style of writing and the tone in which they write these books? In this case, conversational and supportive, providing encouragement while delivering actionable advice and insights. That sounds about right for a book on motivation. You need to be nurturing your reader and kind of supporting them, but at the same time providing them with actionable goals, targets, things that they should be looking to achieve that are reasonable. And then we do have competition analysis down here. So this is going to give you an understanding of uh, what's the important information about your competition that you want included in your outline. So what are the unique selling points of successful books in this niche? This is all information given to you in the research stage that we talked about yesterday. What is the readership demographic of the genre? Again, from yesterday. And what can you offer that is different from the competition? Again, information from yesterday. So if you do go ahead and use tools like our category search from yesterday, you can take this information, copy paste it into your outline, and answer all of those questions for yourself. Now, going back to our outline here, we then have the chapter summaries. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here. This is 10 chapters worth of information for a 30,000 word book. There is quite a lot here. You can see the little scroll dot here on the side is quite small. So there's a lot of scrolling we can do here. But I will give you an overview of what you can expect in the chapter summaries for our outline generation here. So starting with our introduction, we have it requiring a hook with a relatable scenario, highlight the importance of motivation, introduce the key themes of the book, and then a call to action to end out the introduction. Now, this is a common way of laying out a book in this genre, in motivation. You want to get the reader hooked on something that is relatable. You want to explain to them something that they can relate to, for lack of a better word, which will help them really get an understanding or get a realization that you understand what they are going through. Highlighting the importance of motivation, foundational. You need to really impart on the reader why it is important for them to read this book and important for them to follow through. The key themes is going to give the reader an overview of what will be covered here. And then the call to action, of course, is going to really get the reader hyped up, energized, excited for what is to come in this book. For chapter 1 here, and this is where we get into the real meat of the outline, this is going to be a full summary of what we hope the first chapter of generation is going to give us. Now, for chapter 1, we have our chapter summary in a single line. We have subpoints. Subpoints are going to be essentially the subheadings within a chapter, the main topics that chapter is going to discuss. So the goal of each subpoint will be specified here. A set of supporting ideas will be specified. And key takeaways will be specified. And you'll see that for each subpoint, we have got goal, supporting ideas, as well as the key takeaway. Now, supporting ideas is really the flesh and bones of what is going to be written in that chapter. This is going to be, for example, here, financial incentives, a brief overview of salary, bonuses, and profit sharing. These are incentives that drive corporate professionals, as the subpoint states. So we're going to have a subheading or a section in this chapter talking about these, as well as some topics within that subpoint, such as they can drive competition and performance within teams. They can provide awareness. Awareness of these incentives can lead to more strategic financial planning. So we get a very detailed breakdown of what this chapter is going to include, but not with too much detail that it's going to stunt creativity when we come to generation. Now, talking about generation, without going into too much more detail here about the outline, I think what we'll do is next we're going to hop into looking at what the nonfiction content writer generated for this outline. And then once we're done talking about nonfiction, we'll hop over to fiction. Bit of an executive call from me right now. I feel like that's going to be a good flow for us to follow here. So the nonfiction folks, you can see all the nonfiction stuff right in one go. And the fiction folks, you can then catch fiction after. I'm not trying to play favorites, by the way. Now, one last thing I just want to mention here about the outline is we do have potential sources at the bottom. So the potential sources are going to be reliable sources that the content generator can pull from to give context for this particular chapter. We aim to not pull from sources that are deemed unreliable or anecdotal. So things like Reddit, which might be a very good source for finding out how to fix an issue with your computer monitor, typically are not very good for published content because a lot of the information there is anecdotal. It's people sharing unverifiable personal information or personal anecdotes where we don't really have much data to back it up. So we'll stay away from sources like that. Another example is Quora, I think it's called. That answers platform 2. We tend to go for stuff that is only verifiable, that will give you high quality information, because that is the goal here. You want to provide something high quality. So you'll see a lot of these sources here are well known in this field. We have Indeed.com here. We have some scientific articles here from a .gov domain, positivepsychology.com, business.com, etc. They're reliable as far as we can confirm. So moving on from the outline here, let's hop straight over to a generation. So I'm going to go over to this introduction here. It's an introduction, non-fiction, 5,000 tokens roughly to generate. And in order to get this done, I'm going to open up our CHIP generate tools again. I'm going to go to content writer. And from here, we can generate pretty much everything that we need for our book. We need written for our book, let me put it that way. Now we have the option for samples or chapter here. I'll run us through samples in a bit, but let's finish this train of thought and go for chapter. We can select non-fiction. We can select the chapter type, which in this case, because it was an introduction, I'm going to select introduction. And we can put in the outline for this chapter. Now the outline for this chapter we already have. We have it generated up here. We can scroll down, we can find our introduction, and we have the outline for our introduction right here. So we can just copy paste this, hop straight over back into the content writer, put that in here. We can select whether we want to include research or not. So in the case of an introduction, it is not going to include research. That's not necessary here. But for a chapter, an actual normal chapter, we can have it include research. That's where it will give us the suggested sources at the bottom. Going back to introduction though, once we have input our outline here, we can select our tone. Now there's a lot of options for tone here. Don't feel overwhelmed. Just go with what you feel would be best for your book, for your content, for the style that you want. We have got everything from ironic to sincere to pessimistic, conversational, authoritative, formal, informal. There's a lot of options here. And for good reason. We want to give people the ability to really fine-tune what they are generating so they get the type of tone that they really want. Similarly, for writing style, we also have quite a few options here. Everything from poetic writing to comparative, historical, journalistic, creative, technical, descriptive, narrative. I could go on. But once more, there is a lot of information. Well, there's a lot of different options here to really allow you to fine tune. And if you're not too sure the differences between some of them, feel free to ask CHIP. Again, our little helper CHIP here can assist you with that. You can say, what is the difference between descriptive and narrative writing? And he'll be able to give you a little breakdown of that. Alternatively, you can also hop into a Google tab and try and find that information for yourself on the web too. So after selecting our styles, we then just input our target audience here. Now, again, target audience is something that we've already decided. We figured it out in research yesterday, and we've been given an overview of that in the outline too. So we can just copy paste that information in here and then click generate. And once it generates, it will give you in this blank white box here a preview of the introduction it has generated, where you can then save it to your project, copy or clear and start again. And if I minimize that, and I'm actually going to close that, we can see in our introduction here, we have generated content for this book. And this, if you analyze it, it will follow the exact themes that we mentioned in the outline earlier. So it'll start with a relatable starting point for the book. It'll really try and hook the readers with something relatable that they can attach themselves to. It will then move into an explanation as to why motivation is important. It will take the readers through an explanation of what the key takeaways and the key themes of the book are going to be. And then it will end down here with a call to action. In this case, it's saying participation is crucial not only for personal development, but also for contributing positively to your team's dynamics and your organization's overall success. By the end of the book, my hope is that you not only grasp the intricacies of motivation, but begin to embody it daily. So are you ready to transform stress into strength, challenges into triumphs, and motivation into enduring success? A lot of really motivational, upbeat, positive text there that's going to get your reader excited for what's to come. So that's an introduction now. If we're talking about a chapter itself, it's a bit more detailed, of course. It's going to be much longer, so we'll get into that now. Going and opening up our tool again, getting to Content Writer, and once again selecting chapter and nonfiction. We can click normal, so a normal chapter type. It's not an introduction or a conclusion. We can select our word count range. Now we have ranges for word counts here to kind of give flexibility, but also keep the AI in check. AI is going to, at times, want to really expand and go into depth on content. And it's a good idea to always keep it in check, to give it some goalposts to aim for. So if you want your chapters to be relatively short, you can go ahead and say 1,600 to 2,200 words is about the sweet spot for me. In the case of this book, in the outline, I said I want 10 chapters. I want it about 30,000 words. So I'm going to aim for about 3,000 to 3,600 words for this chapter. I can put in the chapter outline here, which again, if we look at our outline from earlier and we scroll down to chapter 1, we have our chapter outline here. So this is our summary and subpoints, as well as the sources down here, but we'll come to them now. So we'll put in our chapter outline here. We'll click include research, and we can use my links if you want to use the links that were provided to you in the outline. Alternatively, you can use our system, which will generate new links. It will go and do a new search. And you'll actually see here, it says that we don't support Quora, LinkedIn, Google Drive, Reddit, Wikipedia, and YouTube. There we go. So in this case, I'm just going to leave that unchecked right now. We can then select tone once again. So ideally, you want to aim for something similar to what you what was suggested in the outline. But if you want to go for something different, feel free. So again, we can go informal. Let's go descriptive, and then our target audience once more. So target audience, again, is something that we would have inputted for the outline. We would have inputted it for the introduction, and we would have figured out who they are with yesterday's research that we did. And then from here, we can just go ahead and click generate. And that is going to generate this chapter for us. Now, if we go, once it is generated and we click save to project, it will then, after we decide where we want to save it in the project, it will display here as chapter 1 and chapter 1 nonfiction. There we go. So for this chapter, you can see we have our main heading, Understanding Motivation in the Workplace, with a subheading and text around that. Another subheading with more explanatory text. You can see that it's actually gone ahead and put references in as well. And another subheading down here, more text, final thoughts, and a reference list for this chapter. Now, some people like to have their references after a chapter or in footnotes. Others might like to put it all at a single reference list at the bottom of the or the end of the book. You can definitely do that. You can just go ahead and copy paste this and put it into a new section titled References at the end. And yeah, there we go. We now have a non-fiction chapter here for this book. And if we want to add more, we can just add a new section, or we can just go straight into the tool, generate a new chapter, and then pop that right below this one in the Sections tab down here. Now, with that being non-fiction done, let's go and have a look at fiction, because there are some key differences in the way that the outlines are made and in the way that the actual written chapters are done. Now, for an outline in fiction, we're going to open up the tool once more, go to Outline, select Fiction, select our target audience. In this case, I had women selected because it is a contemporary romance book. They tend to make up most of the reader base. For chapters, I put in 10, and numbers of words, I put in 25,000 there. I put in my title, which I am very bad for forgetting right now. This Love of Ours, I put in as the title. I put in my genre as, I think it was contemporary romance. There we go. And I put in the explanation of the book as I think it was a 2 to 3 line explanation, just roughly giving an idea of the book is about a small town girl and her budding romance with a big city real estate investor. Just a really rough overview of where I want to set the scene for this. Now, I was a little bit lazy. I didn't put in a lot of information. For fiction, you definitely want to put in more info than that. You might want to include in the explanation here the names of the main characters. You might want to put the an idea of where the scene is set. Is it set in a small town in the country? Is it in the big city? You don't need to put in too much info, but having a few lines, 5 to 10 lines potentially of information here will go a long way to making sure that the outline that is generated is going to fit what you have in mind. Now I'm going to go ahead and close this, and we can go through our fiction outline. Now, our fiction outline here costs us about 100,000 tokens to make. 10,000 tokens to make. The book title is shown here. The manuscript requirements are shown here in an overview. The book background is here. This is what I input as the book background when I was making the outline. So as you can see, it's just over 2 lines worth of text. And then we get into the real meat and bones of the outline. So it starts with the main plot. The main plot gives us options here. We can either have option 1, 2, or 3. In this case, I chose option 1 as the main plot here. So it's an unexpected romance that blossoms between Emma, a small town girl, and Ryan, a big city developer. The chaos that ensues from different lifestyles. So I went for that. There's then subplots here. With subplots, you could have multiple, you could pick one. These are just going to help really drive the development of this book. Then the premise here. So this is a rough overview of the general premise of the book. So this explores the theme of love overcoming barriers as 2 people from opposite worlds discover what truly matters in life and love. We have our target audience down here. So for contemporary romance, we are looking at women aged 18 to 45. That is very rough. You will definitely have readers outside of that demographic, but this will be your biggest demographic. Fans of contemporary romance, of course, readers who enjoy stories featuring strong female protagonists, those interested in small town versus big city dynamics. Now, target audience here is rather vague because I didn't put a lot of information in the book description. Well, not description, the, what is it called again? Let's have a quick look. This is not something I should have to look up, but it is. I think it was the context. But either way, I didn't put a lot of information in there, so that's why we're looking at something relatively vague here. But the more info you put, the better your output will be. Now, where were we? We were at style, yes. So then our style here is a warm, engaging narrative style that blends humor, heartfelt emotion, and relatable characters. That's pretty much what you want to aim for a contemporary romance book. You can, of course, decide to kind of carve your own path and edit this and then go for a different style, but this is generally what's expected of books in this not genre. Then we have our characters here. So these are primary characters featured in the book. We already have Emma and Ryan, as mentioned earlier, but we have some extra side characters down here and a bit of an explanation as to what their role is. So we can see that Emma's supportive best friend offers comic relief and wisdom. Her name's Sarah Blake. We have Ryan's loyal business partner, serves as a voice of reason. These are all characters that are being defined here in the outline to help drive direction for plot points in the book. We then have locations outlined here. We have trope categories outlined here. Tropes are very big in fiction. It's a way of helping identify for authors as well as readers what they are going to be writing or reading. Tropes are pretty essential to understanding the general feel and direction for a book. We have the atmosphere and mood, the book ending, and then location descriptions right below that too. So this is all crucial information to help fill out the context of scenes, environments, and the overall goal of the story in a book. Then as we go down, we have detailed character descriptions here. So these are going to be full background history in a way of characters, what their motivations are, what their personality is like, what their end goals are, their environment, their upbringing, all these sorts of key details that really help make a character feel alive will be laid out here. And we're just going to go ahead and skip through a lot of them so we don't have to go through them individually, but you can see it is quite detailed. And then we get to chapter 1. So these are our chapter descriptions. Each chapter has a summary. We have it split into scenes. Now, the scenes would be the key points in a chapter where the story is driven forward. We have our description and purpose of the scene breakdown, which will be your different events in this scene. And then some details here about the more generalized aspects of that scene. And again, we have scene 2, we have scene 3. If you want more scenes, again, you're more than welcome to add to this or subtract. This is to help give you, this is to help do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Especially when it comes to non-fiction writing and certain styles, I misspoke, especially when it comes to fiction writing and certain types of non-fiction writing. A lot of these are passion projects. There are books where you have a very clear idea in mind as to how you want things to go. So while AI can't necessarily read your mind, it can at least give you a framework with which to unload your ideas onto. So you might find that the first outline you generate isn't perfect. It doesn't exactly capture what you want. But the idea is that it's going to give you a solid framework to mold into what you want. That really is the key usefulness of AI in these circumstances. Now, yeah, as you can see, that was chapter 1. Chapter 2 follows similarly. We have our summary, our scenes, our details, and so on. So you'll see very common theme here as we go through this outline. We have various numbers of events. It's not always 1, 2, and 3. It's sometimes 1, 2, 3, 4. It's sometimes more than that. But we have our events that drive the story forward. We have our details. We have our summary. And then finally, we get right to the last chapter, which will then be the ending to the book. So again, it'll be laid out in a similar way, but it will close off the book. And in this case, we have a section here, the last scene, where they reflect on their relationship, contemplating their journey and the challenges they've faced. The scene wraps up the chapter, illustrating their growth and unity. So this gives us a nice, wholesome ending to the book right here. Now, going into the actual generation of nonfiction, of fiction. I keep on getting tongue-tied with that today. But going into generating fiction content, let's quickly hop through that. We'll go to the content writer here. We'll go to chapter, and we'll have fiction. So as you can see, it does state here, fiction writer is currently in beta. We are pretty happy with where it does stand at the moment. It's by no means lacking, but we are constantly making improvements to it, and we want people to know that. We are doing that in general with our tools across the board, but we have a bit of a focus on fiction right now. We feel like we could really serve our fiction users a bit more. Now, going down, you see that there's a bit of a different interface here. With fiction, you can add new chapters here and generate multiple chapters at a time. AI tends to be a bit better at being creative when it comes to fiction writing than it does in being creative when it comes to nonfiction writing. So with nonfiction, your best output is going to come doing it chapter by chapter. But with fiction, you can afford to go ahead and actually do a few at a time. And in this UI here, this interface, I should say, without using too much technical terminology, in this interface, you can input your chapter title, put in that summary that was generated in the outline, and put in the chapter outline, the body of the chapter outline itself, right into here. Then we have context down here. Context would come also from the outline. This is the story overview, character profiles, locations, object details, and other assets that aren't part of the chapters themselves. So this is all that information that the AI needs to understand who Emma is. Why does she act this way? What is Cedar Lakes? I believe it was Cedar Lakes. That was one of the setting locations. What is Cedar Lakes? What is a description of it? How does it look? How does it feel? What is the atmosphere of the book? That is all key information to making sure these chapters are going to follow the outline and stick to the context that we generated previously. We can then select past tense or present tense. This is very much up to your own personal preference as a writer, and I'm not knowledgeable enough as a fiction writer to really give my input on which one you should go for. All I can say is it won't affect the quality of the output from the AI. It's perfectly capable with both. It just comes down to your preference as a fiction writer. Then we have tone. Now you can either let Kip decide the tone. Kip has got a lot of information, and Kip, being our AI, has got a lot of information from the context. So it can very easily decide a relevant and appropriate tone for this book. But if you do want to be extra specific, you can go ahead and select a tone here. So an obvious one that stands out for this book would be romantic. For writing style, we have a bunch of different styles here. I would probably go something like literary, and that works here. And then for point of view, we have first person, third person, and third person limited. Third person limited will be kind of a middle ground between second person and third person. It's not necessarily strictly going to stay third person. Where it sees it's contextually appropriate, it might change perspective or point of view to aid the story's development and to kind of interest the reader more. In this case, though, for this one, I went for third person. And then for special instructions, I actually didn't add anything. Now, this is completely optional. Special instructions can be, if you have a very clear idea of what you want, you can illustrate that here. You can say, I want this chapter to solely focus on a single character. I don't want there to be any POV changes to any other characters. I just want it to be about this singular character and this singular event. And that's what you can input here. That will give the AI a much clearer idea of exactly what you want to do in this chapter. But if you leave it blank, it'll follow the outline that we've already given it. And it will run us through the events in an appropriate manner in that outline. Okay, so with that done, I'm going to close there and we can have a look at what it generated for us. Now, what it generated here is a single chapter for a fiction book. Used about 42,000 tokens for that. We have chapter 1, scene 1 here. I kept the scene 1, 2, 3 kind of format, but you're more than welcome to change that. Again, the way that these chapters are laid out in a fiction book can be varied, depends on author preference. Some authors don't even like to refer to them as chapters. They'll literally just start a section or a chapter of a book with the location that it's set. My mind goes to Game of Thrones, George R.R. Martin, where he will start a section or a scene or a chapter with a name of a character. So you know which character the section is going to be following, but at some point you kind of lose track on the number of these sections that you've gone through. So, starting here with scene 1, we immediately go through the event that was mentioned in the outline that we put in. So going over to that outline, go to scene 1, we'll see that for chapter 1, if we get to it real quick, a lot of scrolling to do here. Emma nervously prepares to serve her customers, adjusting her apron and taking deep breaths. There's a rough overview of an event for the book to start with. So we can see Emma's fingers deftly adjusted her apron strings as she mentally prepared herself for the morning rush. The coffee shop's aroma, a blend of robust espresso and warm pastries, wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. There's a lot more detail here. We gave it a single 1-2 line description of this event, and it is going to draft up a decent amount of content, taking the reader through it in a descriptive, narrative storytelling style. Now, a lot of the way that it does describe this and it takes us through it is dependent on the writing style you chose, the tone you chose, but you'll see that it is going to follow that outline to a T and really hammer home on these events to build our story. Now, I'm not going to go through all of them, that'll take us forever, but we have our scene 2 here, we have our scene 3 down here, and then our chapter closes out at the end of scene 3 before we move into the next chapter as that's generated. So yeah, that is the beauty of our fiction content generator. We've done our fiction outliner, our non-fiction outliner, and the non-fiction generator too. If anyone joined the stream late, there will be a recording available of this afterwards. There is a recording available of day 1 too, so feel free to check that out. And there will be a recording available for tomorrow's day 3. Now, with all the generation out of the way and aside, we can move on to export. Now, exporting is where we cover formatting, and this is also going to take us through a little bit of the important details for publishing your book. So I'm going to pick, let me actually just try and export all of this. Why not? Let's go for that. If I head over here into these 3 dots, I can then go to export V1. So export V1 is a simplified document exporter. This is really handy if you just want to get something out into a Word document, upload it somewhere else, or edit it yourself in Word or Google Docs. You can do that here. From here, you can select your file format, give the file a name, select your page size. So this will include typical letter sizes, A4, all of those, but also your typical publishing sizes. So your 5 by 8 inches, your 5 by 9, your 6 by 9, all of that is here. Then, on top of that, we can choose whether we want to include a title page, a table of contents, images, links, and page numbering, all here. We can include which sections we want, so we can either have all or specifically include certain sections and tick them off. And then we can go ahead and decide how we want to format our section headings. So if we scroll down here, we can say we want this to be Times New Roman, and we can change the alignment if we want to something else. And you'll see that it's updated our heading 1 for this section. We can choose that for headings 2, 3, 4. And then, of course, for our actual body text here, we can select our font. I've always been a fan of Georgia as a font. We can choose our spacing. I like 1.15. And then we can choose our line height as well. And there we go. We have something ready for export. We can click preview if we want, or we can click export and just go ahead and send it away right away to export. That'll automatically download it for you as a Word document. Now, where it gets really interesting and in-depth is Export V2. This is our new and improved export feature. We're currently adding to it as we speak. There is work going on in the back end to make it even better. But from here, you could go way more in-depth with the way that you want your content laid out. Now, the first thing to choose is your size for your preview, as well as the format, if you want it as an EPUB or a PDF. In this case, I'll stick with EPUB, and I'm going to stick with Kindle Paperwhite. That seems to make sense. And from there, you can either select an existing template. So I'm going to go ahead and select Basic right now. There we go. We can see the template there. Or I'm going to select Basic Plus, and let's have a look at how that looks. And there we go. We have Basic Plus there. Or if you want, you can go ahead and create a new template. Now, a new template kind of gives you a clean slate to really do what you want with formatting. You can, again, select if you want the table of contents, images, and links included. You can select which page you want content to begin on, whether it be default, right side, or left side. And then we get into all of the details here on the left-hand side. So, starting with our table of contents, let's hop over to that. We can see whether we want how we want our font set up for the title. Actually, we can go there. Here we go, sorry. And we can select different fonts, style of font, size, letter spacing, alignment, and line height. We can go ahead and select body styling, such as, again, kind of the same options, font, regular, style, size, alignment, letter spacing, and line height. This will change how your table of contents here is going to look. If we head over to title page, from here we can actually enter our title. So I believe the book was called This Love of Ours. Let me capitalize that so it looks a bit better. And I can select my font. I'm going to go for something a little bit wild here, and I'll click a font called Anton. One of our fantastic developers in the back end is named Anton, so shout out to you, sir. We can then go ahead and select size. So I'm going to select size 20 here. I want it to be a bit larger than what it is. We can choose our alignment. We can choose where we want it positioned. It's middle of the page right now. We can select top of the page if we want. We can have a title subtitle divider. That's this line down here. And then we can enter our subtitle, our author name. I can't remember what the subtitle was for this book, so I'm going to leave that blank for now. We can do our author name here. Let's pick another font for that, and let's make it a little bit bigger. And again, we can select where we want this author name to live. Before we continue, quick water break. There we go. Lovely. Hydrating. Now, moving on from here, we have headers and footers. So these are going to be headers and footers in the body content of the book, how we kind of want it laid out, specifically in this case in terms of page numbering and author and title. So in some books, you may see that the author name, the title would be included at the top of the page, and others will have page numbering. In most cases, this is relevant to PDF rather than EPUB. So if we were to go ahead and switch over to PDF, we'll see a lot more prominently here the differences between our different selections. And you'll see as we go ahead and change these, you'll see we have page numbering now, top of the page numbering bottom of the page, page numbering and author title on every page. It's up to you what you want, really. And again, you can once more change your page number and the text. So that would be your font here, your style, and your size. And if we head over to section headings, this will talk specifically about the titles for our sections. So in this case, because I didn't edit the document before putting it through to export, our heading for this section is Introduction Nonfiction. That's what I had it as for my example. But right here, I can go ahead and I can change that font. I can make it bigger. I can decide where I want my margins to be and how big I want the margins to be between the top and the bottom. So you can kind of compress the page or make it a bit larger. And then our chapter numbering down here as well. Currently, we don't have any chapter numbering, but we can have it be a letter 1, the word 1, chapter 1, or chapter 1. Watching the stream, you can see the difference. Then under paragraph, again, we do have a few more options here in how you want your paragraphs laid out. So you'd have your drop cap letter at the beginning, or lead in small caps. That would change the first letter of your paragraph to be that large drop cap that we're very much familiar with. We have beginning of chapter or every paragraph followed by a breakpoint. So that's when we're going to use that drop cap or your preferred formatting. We can choose if we want it in subsequent we can choose for subsequent paragraphs whether we want it indent or spaced. So the drop cap will be indented or there will just be standard spacing. And then our section body for the paragraph here would be our font that we want to use for the actual writing itself. And of course, size, alignment, spacing, and so on. Then we have our last two down here. We have headings. We can select how we want different headings to function in here. That'll be heading 1s, heading 2s, heading 3s, headings 4s, and 5s. So each sub-point that you do have in your book, we would typically have the main kind of talking point of a chapter be your heading 1 or your heading 2, and then little sub-points that branch off of that could be headings 3s, 4s, or 5s. And this is where we decide how they look. So typically you'd want them to be heading 1's the largest, draw more attention to them, and then smaller from there. Some people would prefer to do slightly differing fonts based on their heading. And of course, in terms of line height and letter spacing, some people might want a bit more emphasis put on a heading 1, so they might want some different spacing around it. That can all be chosen here. And then lastly, margin. So this is your book margin, this is for printing. In here, you can select the size of the margins that you're going to have around your book. Now, keep in mind, the margin settings here also do have an effect on the margins, the buffers that you set earlier for stuff like your primary headings in your chapter. But typically, we have it set up here as the generally accepted defaults for getting a book printed. So you can go ahead and customize this if you want. If you're not too sure, be rest assured that this is the typical standard that's expected. And then from there, we've gone through all of the different settings that we can go through to set up our book. We can save this as a new template up here. And then next time you go through this process, you don't need to set everything custom. You can just select a template. And then from here, we can click this button to get a bit of a bigger preview of how it's going to look. We can select different sizes here, so we can see how it's going to look with a different trim size. And let's just wait for that to load. There we go. See, it's a much larger sized book, so we have a lot more text on a page. And we can, of course, just filter through here. And then we can click export. And that will go ahead and export it for us as a PDF. And if you want it as a PDF and an ebook or an EPUB, you can just switch that here, wait for the preview to generate, and click export again. and we'll go ahead and export it for you once more. Now, if you do run into any issues on this page, something that I always point out to people is that we do have a little feedback up here. If there's anything you'd like to see added, if there's anything that you run into in terms of problems or bugs, let us know. Click here. It's a very, very quick little form that you fill out just to give us some information on what happened or what you'd like added. And that gets sent directly through to our development teams. It actually comes directly through to me, our project manager, to then assess and follow up for information or immediately hand over for development. So that is pretty much our whole pipeline and everything that we wanted to go through today in terms of outlining, content generation, and export. I think at this point, Mike, we can go into some questions that have been building up, I'm sure, from our viewers. I haven't had the chat open for much of this. I've been staying focused, so I'm hoping we're going to get some good ones through here. Can you quickly talk about the difference between EPUB and PDF? Good question. So, PDF is typically what you are going to use for getting a book printed. In general, talking the biggest self-publishing book printer out there, which would be KDP, they ideally would like PDF. I believe they do take some other formats, but in general, you're going to get the best results with a PDF document. There are a lot of useful things built into apps like Adobe Acrobat as well that'll help people publishing using PDF. Adobe Acrobat actually allows you to go in there and run what they call a pre-flight check on a document to make sure that it's conforming to a publishing standard for printing. So PDF is really handy for that. There are apps like Adobe PDF, Adobe Acrobat, that allow you to really double, triple check things. And in general, most of your big printers are going to want a PDF. It's a lot better for converting into a printed book. EPUB, on the other hand, is your typical e-reader, ebook format. So when you're uploading to KDP or another ebook platform, often your book is either going to be uploaded as an ebook or they're going to convert it to an ebook. Amazon will often do this thing where if you upload a Word document, they'll actually convert it into their format of EPUB, ebook type document. But EPUB in general is your general standard for ebooks. So that's the difference between the two. That's why we have two options there. One is for people that want to take this and get it printed. The other is for people that want to just upload an ebook straight to a selling platform or a marketplace. Yeah, I hope that helped. Can it write screenplays too? So screenplays are definitely something that we've shown interest in looking into refining the AI to write. There are options when you go to the content writer here. I believe it's under writing style. I think it's in here that we do have script writing. Thank you, Mike, for sharing my screen again. I forgot about that. We do have script writing here as a writing style. So we are pretty confident that it can go ahead and provide you a lovely script for the, let's not say book, let's say content that you want to generate. Now, if that's what you're looking for in this sense, yes, it can do that. If you're looking for something that's a bit more of an in-depth, and my knowledge when it comes to screenplays is a bit lacking here, but if you want something that's more like what you'd give actors at a reading to read through, where there's a bit more information on setting scene and general real-life interaction, you might need to do a little bit of editing. But in terms of actual screenwriting and writing a script, yes, it will do the trick for you. What sources does the AI use for research when generating content? So luckily, I did kind of cover this briefly earlier, but I'll go over it again right now just to make sure everyone's in the loop. In general, we aim to have the most reliable sources possible as the ones we use. Now, there are a lot of sources out there that some people would consider reliable, like Wikipedia, like Reddit, which generally are reliable for everyday use. If you need to figure out how to fix a toaster or download a certain piece of software or, I don't know, paint a painting, you'll find someone on Reddit who can tell you how to do it. That is kind of the beauty of Reddit. It's a similar thing for YouTube. There's always someone that knows how to do something there, and they've posted it online. Now, that is great for everyday use, but when you're writing a book, you want facts, you want provable evidence, you want something that is not based on anecdote, not based on someone's personal opinion or their personal way of doing something. And that's especially true for nonfiction. In fact, I'd say it's primarily true for nonfiction. So because of that, we don't allow our research tools or our outliner or content writer to troll places like Reddit or Quora or Wikipedia or YouTube for information. Because it's very hard for us to verify if that information is reliable or not. Now, one thing I do just want to add there as a caveat is Wikipedia in general is very reliable, but the issue with Wikipedia is that anyone can go onto Wikipedia and edit a page. Now, usually that edit is then reviewed by a Wikipedia moderator who will then edit it back or kind of undo it if it's something that's wrong. They're very good at doing that. But we want to make sure that in that moment between someone editing that page and the Wikipedia moderator fixing it, you aren't getting improper information. So, hope that answers. How do I strike the right balance between AI assistance and my own creativity? Good question. So, I'm saying good question about everything, but that's because they are so far. When it comes to striking that balance, a lot of it is subjective. It's up to your preference. So, and a lot of it's up to your confidence as well. In general, AI can be used either as a very minor little helper just to get you through some tough times, or it can be used as your full working partner to do the heavy lifting and you go in to do the editing afterwards. Your own creativity really is the only thing that helps you decide where you wish to draw that line. Now, anyone can be creative, and I truly think that creativity is a metric that's more trained than naturally ingrained. Like, you are more creative based on the amount that you use your creativity and the more creative things that you do. So the amount that you rely on AI is going to change the more you use it. The more books you generate, the less you might need it. The more books you generate, the more you might want to use it. It really depends on how confident you are in your own ability, how much reliance and trust you want to put in AI, and how confident you are at using AI. Because that really is the important thing here. With AI, the more you get out of it, well, you'll get more out of it by knowing how to prompt it and understanding how to work with it. It's like with working with someone in your professional life. You prefer to work with a person directly who you understand. You know what to expect. You know how to get the most out of them. And AI is the same. You've got to treat it the same way. As long as you know how to get the most out of them, you can rely on them as little or as much as you want. And if you're not confident that you do know how to get the most out of them, start out light, get to know them, and then build that relationship as you go. Yeah. How do I give the AI clear instructions if I'm not familiar with prompts? It might sound a bit of a cop-out, but really I would say have a conversation. AI, and I kind of, again, touched on this earlier, but AI is trained on humans. It's trained on us. Everything that it has ever learned has been made by a person. and it's been made by a person for another person. That's the key important detail here, is that AI understands how people talk to each other. It understands how we make stuff for other people. And therefore, the best way to really prompt an AI and to work with it is to talk to it like it's another person. Apologies if there is some noise in the background. I have a cat that is sneezing in the room with me. Not what was not on my bingo card for this webinar. But yes, with AI, it really comes down to talking to it like a person. As little detail, as much detail as you want. There are no set rules. It's just understanding that you've got to treat it like another human being. Okay, we are ready for the next one, Mike. What have we got? So, Beverly Schwartz. Hi, will AI edit your writing, e.g. poetry? And is it then your work or AI? So yes, you can definitely have the AI help you edit. I'm going to point out our inline CIP. Mike, if you can share that screen again for us real quick. It won't take me a second. Our inline CIP tools here, we have got some great options here, like grammar correction, rewriting, continue writing, where it'll take the context you've highlighted and continue, as well as change point of view, change writing style, simplify, enrich, and fact check. So you've got a lot of very useful tools here that'll help you do some basic editing for your work. Now, I will always say a human touch is great. If you have got someone that can edit it for you in conjunction with AI, more power to you. But AI is, if you know how to use it, it is very, very solid. And in terms of whether the work is then yours or AI, as long as you created it, it is yours. That is a question that a lot of people are debating over right now. Where do we draw the line as to whether something is AI or human made? How do I define what is mine and what wasn't created by me? In my opinion, if it's your ideas, if it's your inspiration, your experiences as a person that you are putting into this, then it is yours. That is the basis of art. Art, at the end of the day, is a manifestation of human experience. So, as long as you are putting what you know into it, it is yours. If, in terms of the AI editing it, let me put it that way, as long as it, again, is your content, no matter how much the AI chops and changes and gives suggestions and helps you out here and there, it is your work at the end of the day. I think generally when it comes to local jurisdictions and what local government might say or your regional government might say, there are debates ongoing now in places like California as to where we really draw that line. That might change things in the future, and that might give us some clear goalposts to aim for. But at the moment, there's not really anything concrete that's generally agreed upon. So where you feel you can draw that line, you can draw that line. One little caveat I will add, though, is that KDP, they do now ask for you to specify if a book that you're uploading there was, I think, AI assisted or AI generated. They do actually have a bit of a description there on their website as to what they define as AI assisted and AI generated. So if you are a bit unsure and you're looking to publish on a platform like that, definitely check to see if they have anything specific that they use to define it. All right, and I believe Mike might have one last question for us here. It is up on my screen. I opened the chat and made my screen very small so I couldn't see it. Here we go. Okay, can one insert external charts or tables before or during the formatting of the book? Definitely. And my answer is yes to both. So you can import and insert images and tables into here. If you have something that is like in an image form, like an image of a table, you can just go ahead and insert here. You can also insert table here, select the number of rows and columns. I'm not sharing my screen again. Mike, if you could do that, that would be lovely. Yes, apologies. So yes, as I was saying, before the formatting of the book, you can open up a Create document. You can click on this button right here, and you can go to Insert. And from there, you can click Insert Image if it is just an image style table, whatever. Or you can click Table down here, select the number of rows and columns that you want, and then input your data. You can also just copy paste something from like a Word document over into here. Make sure it's formatted all right, so make sure that it's not showing up weird after the copy paste, and then export it like that. Alternatively, once you export this document, if you're exporting it as a Word document or as a PDF, you can just open it up in Adobe Acrobat or another PDF reader or an editor, or in Microsoft Word, Google Docs, something similar to that. And from there, you can just paste in your tables there. The formatting that we do is very robust. So even after something has been exported and you've opened it up locally on your computer, you can go in there and chop and change and edit and reformat as you want. It's not going to hurt anything doing that. All right. So thank you everyone for the questions and for being here. I really do appreciate it. I think day 2 went very well. For day 3, tomorrow, the last day, we are going to be tackling, as I mentioned earlier, some of the post-content creation topics. So we'll be looking at things like marketing, collaboration, some topics around AI publishing for success. That's going to be also involving some of our tools like the title generator, descriptions, image generation, some of our teamwork tools that are in here, the prompt library as well. So we're going to be going over a lot of the things that are a bit miscellaneous, but also a lot of the things that are going to help you really get started on publishing this book that you have now researched and created. So tune in for that. Check out the today's video if you only caught part of it. It will be uploaded afterwards. Check out the video for yesterday's webinar as well. That one was particularly fun in my opinion, but I'm a bit of a nerd that really likes analytics. So all of the research that we did yesterday was quite interesting to me. The link is in the chat there. I see Mike just posted it. So go ahead and check that out. Leave us a like, subscribe to our channel on YouTube as well. If you're watching on somewhere like LinkedIn, give us a follow there as well. Feel free to comment. Feel free to let us know what else you guys would like to see in terms of webinars. I'm dipping my toes back into this now, so I am raring to go on any other topics that we want to cover. And yeah, otherwise, I will see everyone for tomorrow's webinar. And once more, I am taking note of where everyone is tuning in from. So I'm going to be doing a roll call at the beginning of tomorrow's webinar as well. See who has joined us from today. If you haven't joined us, well, if tomorrow comes and you're not here, give yourself a slap on the wrist, because I will be expecting you here. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Please have a lovely rest of your day, and I will be seeing